This episode of the CyberWire is made possible in part by CyberReason. They're coming for it. Your personal data, your intellectual property, your business. Cyber attackers are working to take what belongs to you and holding you to ransom. Defenders don't fear ransomware, they end it. With CyberReason, defenders detect and stop ransomware that even others miss, every time. A promise backed by a $1 million breach warranty. At CyberReason, they don't fear ransomware, they end it. Learn more at cyberreason.com/ransom. Tehran is running password spraying attacks, especially on Thursdays and Sundays. More on the renewed popularity of DDoS attacks. NCSC warns British businesses against ransomware. 2 journalists win the Nobel Peace Prize. Joe Kerrigan shares his thoughts on Grift Horse. Our guest is Bindu Sundarasan from AT&T Cybersecurity on football season and cyber risks. And watch out for small data cards in your peanut butter sandwiches, friends. From the CyberWire studios at Data Tribe, I'm Dave Bittner with your CyberWire summary for Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. The Microsoft Threat Intelligence Center yesterday released a report on Dev 0343, an activity cluster Redmond connects to Iran. Dev 0343 has been conducting password spraying attacks against more than 250 Office 365 tenants. Fewer than 20 of the attempts were successful. Targets include U.S. and Israeli defense technology companies, Persian Gulf ports of entry, or global maritime transportation. The target selection is unsurprising as it's consistent with Iranian intelligence requirements. As Redmond puts it, quote, "This activity likely supports the national interests of the Islamic Republic of Iran based on pattern of life analysis, extensive crossover in geographic and sectoral targeting with Iranian actors, and alignment of techniques and targets with another actor originating in Iran. Microsoft assesses this targeting supports Iranian government tracking of adversary security services and maritime shipping in the Middle East to enhance their contingency plans. Gaining access to commercial satellite imagery and proprietary shipping plans and logs could help Iran compensate for its developing satellite program. Given Iran's past cyber and military attacks against shipping and maritime targets, Microsoft believes this activity increases the risks to companies in those sectors, and we encourage our customers in these industries and geographic regions to review the information shared in this blog to defend themselves from this threat." End quote. In the course of its campaign, Dev 0343 emulated a Firefox browser and used IPs hosted on Tor. It most often targeted Auto-Discover and ActiveSync. Those of you interested in schedules and workplace customs in and around threat actors will take note that Dev 0343 was most active on Sundays and Thursdays between 7:30 a.m. Tehran time, when the factory whistle blew, and 8:30 p.m., which seems to have been quitting time. Microsoft uses the dev prefix followed by a numeral to designate a threat actor that isn't yet fully classified. Once it's categorized and identified the actor, the company typically moves to one of its familiar elemental threat names. Microsoft also disclosed that in August it successfully mitigated a distributed denial-of-service attack against an unnamed Azure customer. At 2.4 terabytes per second, the incident was, at the time, according to the record, the biggest volumetric attack so far observed. The Maris botnet broke the record shortly after the attack against the Azure customer. Quote, "The attack traffic originated from approximately 70,000 sources and from multiple countries in the Asia-Pacific region, such as Malaysia, Vietnam, Taiwan, Japan, and China, as well as from the United States." End quote. Microsoft continued their account of the incident, quote, "The attack vector was a UDP reflection spanning more than 10 minutes with very short-lived bursts. each ramping up in seconds to terabit volumes. In total, we monitored 3 main peaks, the first at 2.4 terabits per second, the second at 0.55 terabits per second, and the third at 1.7 terabits per second." End quote. Microsoft, who we note in a spirit of full disclosure is a CyberWire sponsor, has in general seen a year-over-year rise in the number of DDoS attacks. While the attacks' total throughput is down a bit, the number of attacks is up by about 20%. The BBC reports that the head of Britain's National Cybersecurity Centre, speaking at Chatham House Cyber 2021, described Russian-tolerated criminal cybercrime, notably ransomware, as a threat to the security of British businesses. In this, as in other matters, the Five Eyes tend to see the threat landscape through similar lenses, with both Russia and China bulking large. The NCSC's director, Lindy Cameron, emphasized that ransomware, however, represented the most immediate danger. The Nobel Committee Friday announced that 2 journalists, Maria Ressa of the Rappler in the Philippines and Dmitry Muratov of Novaya Gazeta in Russia, would be awarded this year's Peace Prize. The Washington Post describes both journalists' critical engagement with their respective governments. Both, and especially Mr. Muratov, have worked at considerable personal risk. Congratulations to them. A Maryland couple have been charged with violations of the Atomic Energy Act. Jonathan and Diana Tebby are said to have sold restricted data related to submarine nuclear propulsion systems to an FBI undercover operative they believe to be an agent of a foreign power. Jonathan Tebby is an engineer employed by the U.S. Department of the Navy. The Tebbys are said to have asked for $100,000 in Bitcoin, of course, in exchange for the restricted data they were offering. Restricted data is a term of art described in the U.S. Atomic Energy Act as, quote, all data concerning design, manufacture, or utilization of atomic weapons, the production of special nuclear material, or the use of special nuclear material in the production of energy, end quote. Restricted data is not itself a classification, and data so marked may be controlled at any number of levels, running at least from the relatively low-level confidential classification up through top secret. The Baltimore Sun reports that the information was stored on SD cards, which were then hidden in a Band-Aid wrapper or a peanut butter sandwich, no word on whether jelly was included, before being deposited in what spies call a dead drop, which the FBI told them would be out in West Virginia. CBS News and others report that the FBI was tipped off by the unnamed foreign power. Who might that unnamed power be? There's reason to think, from the internal evidence of the indictment, that the unnamed power was itself an operator of nuclear submarines. There are 6 nations who operate nuclear subs: Russia, China, India, the UK, France, and the US, with Australia to join the club as a 7th member in a few years, under an agreement recently concluded with the US and the UK. Assuming that a wannabe spy would be likeliest to approach a rival submarine power, that leaves Russia, China, India, the UK, and France. It's unlikely in the extreme that either Russia or China would tip off the FBI about anything. India might, but on the other hand, it might not. You'd have to be an extraordinarily stupid spy to offer American secrets to the British and think this would go unremarked, and so, while stranger things have happened, we can probably rule out the UK and, for that matter, Australia, since the Five Eyes generally see eye to eye. So France. Maybe. It would still require a degree of cluelessness to approach a close U.S. ally like France, but a newbie spy might well decide that was a good bet, especially given French irritation about the Australian agreement with the US and UK, which cut French builders off from a potential market. The timeline's not clear, but it's a nice theory. Dmitry Alperovich, who's been tweeting about this a little, thinks on other evidence that it was France. Quote, "Oh, and he told his fake handler that he wants to one day meet them in a cafe and have a bottle of wine. Case closed." Mr. Alperovich tweeted. If it was the French, we hope the FBI said merci and sent over a nice bottle of bourbon. And now, a word from our sponsor, LookingGlass Cyber, a global leader in cybersecurity. In 2021, over 80 significant cyber incidents have taken place, and government entities are struggling to keep up. Cyber attacks harm victims' reputations, increase costs, and erode public trust. We need better security practices. Adaptive security is an approach that treats risk, trust, and security as a continuous and adaptive process that anticipates and mitigates constantly evolving cyber threats. Gartner discusses this concept and how government organizations should leverage adaptive security approaches in its recent report, Top Technology Trends in Government, Adaptive Security. LookingGlass can help your organization develop a continuous approach to monitoring your organization's attack surface and the attack surfaces for all your suppliers and vendors. Get in touch and access your complimentary copy of the Gartner report at lookingglasscyber.com/cyberwire. And we thank LookingGlass Cyber for sponsoring our show. Are you ready for some football? That's American football for our international listeners, not the Ted Lasso football is life variety you all play in the majority of the world. I have been informed by loved ones who track such things that it is indeed football season. Bindu Sundrasan is director at AT&T Cybersecurity, and she reminds us that when it comes to the security of personal information, it's important to keep your eye on the ball.
When you have, sports events, the football season, like we're talking about, it really does garner attention from the malicious actor. So, we all have to have our guards up and make sure that, the information that we are sharing on social media, on, ticketing platforms that we are using to buy these tickets, or, even at stadiums when we go to watch, everything is automated today with every technology and innovation that we have. Think of it as yet another attack vector, an avenue for the malicious actor to use to go after. How many of us, truly use different user IDs and passwords for different things, right? Most of us don't. So, that's why we see an uptick in credential stuffing attacks. So what this really means is, the credentials that you're using to watch, the football games versus to shop online versus for your social media, if they're all the same, anywhere where I could, really get access to that, credentials, I will now use it maliciously. And think about, all of the, websites that we, go to as we are, really looking forward to these games, and we're, trying to get, let's say, tickets, or, posting on social media. We fall prey to social engineering in the sense that really may not be thinking about it from a cybersecurity point of view, but keep in mind that, it is exactly that moment that the malicious actor wants to prey on, right? It is that, you've let your guard down. You are not thinking about it as like cybercrime, type of, mode, right? All the security awareness and training that you've gotten, at work, and, what you've read about, sort of goes off out the window when, you're sort of being entertained and you're watching a game. So, the key is, even public Wi-Fi hotspots, right? So, we know that you're not supposed to connect to, just public Wi-Fi hotspots and have all the, transactions happen on guest Wi-Fi. But that, but then when you're at a stadium, how often are you thinking? Are you just going to be, doing all types of transactions and, on your mobile phone while you're watching a game at a stadium? Most likely you are, right? So it is about being aware of how the malicious actor is looking to leverage any and all opportunity that they can. It happens, right? So it's key that, with the new season and, with all of us, also coming off of the pandemic, we are all ready, for some entertainment and for, sort of, not being locked up, right? So I think, that's exactly the point where, we become more vulnerable to data loss, because all of that data that we are tracking, whether it is the performance of athletes, using it for competitive advantage, you slowly, sort of lose sight of the fact that it can be used for espionage and sabotage. And identity theft is becoming more and more prevalent because of all this information that is out there.
I think you bring up a really interesting point, which is that of trust. And I think many of us have an inherent trust in our favorite teams. We feel an affinity for them. And so it's likely that if we get some sort of communication from them or maybe one of our favorite players, that could lead us to having our guard down just because of that affection we have for them.
Oh yeah, definitely, right. But the thing is, because I've been doing this for over 20 years, I have to say that security is people, process, and technology, right? It is as much of psychology play as much as it is a technology play, right? So if I were to tell you, hey, can you just share your date of birth, your phone number? I'm not asking you for your credit card. And, can you share enough of your personal information so that you can win a raffle where, let's say, you get to spend a day with your favorite player? How many of us will really refrain from doing that, right? And you think about all these Facebook and social media games that we play, right? Funny pet names, favorite pet names, right? Where did you go to school? Which year were you born, right? All of this is a digital footprint of you, right? So when you're asked all of these pieces of information in the context of spending time with your favorite player, you really don't even think again, right? It's key that we not only invest in secure payment system and, we are really doing sort of two-factor authentication, we're filtering emails, right? But in addition to that, the awareness of, would you even know how to spot a fake app? Would you know how to, be able to really, if let's say you got a call that talks about, you bought a ticket to your favorite game, and now, right, we do have, as a fan, we engage with these sports teams, and at the same time, the sports teams have to think about it in terms of cyber risk, trust and resilience.
That's Bindu Sundrasan from AT&T Cybersecurity. Next week, big changes come to cyber risk quantification. On October 18th, Threat Connect will release Risk Quantifier 6, which adheres to the FAIR standards and addresses the challenges of FAIR implementation by applying automation to the cyber risk quantification problem. Threat Connect RQ introduces new scenarios that enable analysts to leverage the FAIR framework in standard and semi-automated manners. Companies can use RQ to work within the FAIR framework as they do today, while also evolving their risk practice using the power of automation. RQ helps companies evolve and better adopt risk quantification across their organization. You can now scale your FAIR risk models to evolve your risk management program by leveraging your financial data and technical environment data using the RQ risk computation engine. The result? Meaningful reports for more informed and data-driven decisions with business stakeholders. Visit the Risk Threat Response Company at threatconnect.com to learn more. And joining me once again is Joe Kerrigan. He's from the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute and also my co-host over on the Hacking Humans podcast. Hello, Joe.
Hi, Dave.
We have been covering here on the CyberWire this scam campaign called Grift Horse,
yes,
which the folks over at Zimperium have been tracking. Interesting story over on Wired written by Lily Hay Newman that outlines it. I recommend people check out. But I wanted to dig in with it with you as well.
Right.
This is the kind of thing we cover over on Hacking Humans pretty regularly. What's going on behind the scenes here, Joe?
So what's happening is these guys, these bad actors, don't really know who they are, but they have used a development framework called Apache Cordova. And what Cordova does is it allows you to develop cross-platform applications. Why would you put a lot of energy into developing both Android and Apple iOS applications when you can just develop one application using standard web technologies like HTML5, cascading style sheets, and JavaScript to essentially build a web-based experience for the user that translates across different platforms.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the tool they're using
Right.
is Apache Cordova, and it does just that. So it's a great tool for application developers.
Okay.
But because you're using a web-based technology, I can just put anything I want on the servers that the application accesses, right? So the malicious code in this case does not actually exist in the app. From the perspective of the Google Play Store and from and all of the people that analyze the apps, and there's a bunch of them, and Zimperium is actually one of the people that looks at the apps before they get published. There's nothing malicious in the app until the user activates the app and the app goes out to a command and control server and downloads HTML and everything that it needs to show the user things.
Okay.
And that also enables new functionality. And behind the scenes, it has access to a lot of different pieces of information about you, like your Google advertising ID, the equipment identification number, the EI, whatever that long string of numbers is that represents your phone uniquely.
Right, right.
It has access to that. It also has the capability of signing you up for premium services automatically. And well, not really automatically. It does ask you to claim your gift.
Yeah, so
Right.
let me just interject here because it says basically, you go and you download a what you think is a benign app,
Right.
a translator app, a heart rate monitor, that sort of thing.
Yeah, all these, and they have a chart of these apps on the Zimperium report, and it's amazing. They have 200 apps that were equipped this way.
Now, it says after downloading one of the malicious apps, a victim would receive a flood of notifications, 5 an hour,
Right.
that prompted them to confirm their phone number to claim a prize. Joe, if my phone were pestering me 5 times an hour to claim a prize, I would take it out in the parking lot and run over it with my car.
I don't know which app. This happened a long time ago. I got some app that started doing this to me.
Yeah.
And first off, it was a nightmare to figure out which app it was sending it to me because it was an older version of Android. Now it says, hey, this notification is from this app.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And they have pictures of that.
Yeah.
But back in the Android 2 days, that wasn't the case. I just got notifications on my phone. Drove me batty.
Yeah.
Hated it.
Yeah. So in this case, they get you to verify your number, but what you're really doing is you're signing up for a premium SMS service for $42 a month.
Right.
For something or other.
Now, I think that's a little high and greedy, don't you? I mean,
who knows? Maybe they're fans of the Hitchhiker's Guide.
Right. Right. But these guys infected or distributed 10 million copies of these things.
Yeah.
If you can just go like $1 a month, maybe that slips under the radar.
Well, yes, but I think what they're counting on here is that most people, by the time someone gets their bill and reviews it,
right,
and then cancels or whatever, they've got their $42.
Right, and they just keep it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but it's interesting to me that, Zimperium points out that this has been active since November of 2020. That's a long time for something to be hanging around in the Play Store at this scale.
Yeah, they were in there since November of last year, 2020. They were completely undetected by any of the antivirus companies out there. They had developed more than 200 of these apps, and they had that sophisticated architecture where they download the malicious code from a website, right? And they had a no reuse policy to avoid the blacklisting of these servers or these strings.
Right, they didn't reuse URLs.
Right.
Yeah.
So they say that level of sophistication, and when I say they, I mean Zimperium says that level of sophistication, the use of these novel techniques, and the determination displayed by these guys allowed them to stay undetected for several months, for almost a year.
Yeah, almost a year.
This is a long-term campaign. They've got a close to 10 million installs, and I don't know if they're counting that from the Google Play Store or from also third-party apps. Now, all of these apps have been removed from the Google Play Store.
Right.
That doesn't mean there aren't more apps out there that they haven't found yet. There may be, but they can't make the same claim about third-party app stores, which is one of the things that I frequently tell people is don't use third-party app stores, and this is exactly why.
Yeah, But so let's talk about potential protection here, because these were on the Google Play Store.
These were on the Google Play Store, right?
There's your walled garden, and you I think rightfully have a sense that things are more secure there, that they've been through some sort of check before you can download them. So what do you do here?
First off, the risk is really kind of minimal from the American perspective, right? $42, maybe I lose it and just cancel the service and I'm done.
Yeah.
So it's not, devastating or world ending for us. But that may not be the case elsewhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do you do? I would say pay attention to your bill and fight every charge that you don't expect.
Yeah.
Google's usually pretty good about refunding premium service charges. Apple's also very good about that, but this didn't affect any of the Apple Store products. At least they don't say it did.
I guess security awareness too. I mean, and whenever you see one of these prize-winning things, they're generally a scam.
Yeah, and prize-winning. Yeah, you want a prize. I mean, if you got an app that's sending you prize notifications all the time, uninstall the app.
Yeah.
If it sends you one prize-winning notification, uninstall the app. That's my policy. I don't want you to try to give me a prize. I just want you to deliver me functionality. I like apps that you pay for, that you pay a one-time fee for to not have ads on it.
Right.
I do that with a couple of apps I really enjoy. And I don't generally like the subscription model for phone apps.
Yeah. All right. Well, again, the campaign is called Grift Horse, and the folks over at Zimperium have been leading the way on describing it. This article is from Lily Hay Newman over in Wired. Joe Kerrigan, thanks for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Dave.
Thanks to all of our sponsors for making the CyberWire possible, especially our supporting sponsor, SpyCloud, the leader in account takeover and fraud prevention. Learn more at spycloud.com/cyberwire. And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, check out our daily briefing at thecyberwire.com. Don't forget to check out the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast, where I contribute to a regular segment called Security. I join Jason and Brian on their show for a lively discussion of the latest security news every week. You can find Grumpy Old Geeks where all the fine podcasts are listed, and check out the Recorded Future podcast, which I also host. The subject there is threat intelligence, and every week we talk to interesting people about timely cybersecurity topics. That's at recordedfuture.com/podcast. The CyberWire podcast is proudly produced in Maryland out of the startup studios of Data Tribe, where they're co-building the next generation of cybersecurity teams and technologies. Our amazing CyberWire team is Elliot Peltzman, Trey Hester, Brandon Karpf, Haru Prakash, Justin Saby, Tim Nodar, Joe Kerrigan, Carol Terrio, Ben Yellen, Nick Valecki, Gina Johnson, Bennett Moe, Chris Russell, John Petrick, Jennifer Iben, Rick Howard, Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow. What's the true impact of insider risk? Did you know that according to Aberdeen Research, 1 in 3 organizations reported data breaches involving insiders, and that 80% of those were not malicious, but were caused by negligence or by accident? Did you know that the average number of data exposure events is 13 events per user per day? Breaches are 4.5 times more likely to happen on an endpoint than on a server, and can cost an organization up to 20% of its annual revenue. Insider risk has a huge impact on the business, making it a top cybersecurity priority that is only predicted to grow. Transform your approach to managing insider risk with Code 42. Code 42 believes that organizations should never compromise their speed of innovation or the safety of their data. That's why the Code 42 insider risk management approach fundamentally shifts the data security mindset to focus on results that deliver business value. For resources on insider risk management, visit code42.com/showme.